All right, you're recording. Tuning in the Omnibus. It is the final Saints and Sinners. One Little Push by Will Jordan, better known as the Critical Drinker. He wrote it. Carlos Reno, interior artist. Marco Lesko, colorist. Kane might be the world's greatest assassin. His reputation precedes him, as there's no target he cannot eliminate and no job he won't take on. Actually, I was thinking about it now, that's really stupid. No, I mean, it legitimately is, because in order to develop and maintain a reputation of no target he cannot eliminate, you do select who you do and do not, what you do and do not take on, what jobs you do and do not take on. And not in a, oh, that's too hard, I don't want to touch it, but in a, you don't want one where it's like, yeah, that's not going to happen. Anyone who tells you that that target can be eliminated is an idiot. Right? I mean, you do need to be discerning with your work. And it's also, then it's like, and no job he won't take on. It's like, I'll give you $5 to get rid of that person. It's a, well, I guess I take on every job. Okay, give me, I mean, anyhow. But it's also, I don't really like Kane. We'll get to that though. With an exceptional skill set, and it's exceptional with a capital E, places him several steps ahead of his prey. Not exactly, but when you enlist this killer, the job is as good as done. But when Kane is hired to kill the unkillable, a god walking among us, has he finally met his match? The quotes for God are actually in there. Which I'll just say, when reading that, I was immediately thinking, I'm trying to go after Yaira, because she's the only being thus far introduced that would technically be described as that. But then at the same time, you do have characters like Solari, who, at least in some capacity, is a direct rival to her. Like, he can also fly, and he's also very strong. And the fact that it's been described before that he has fought her to a draw, to a standstill, indicates that at least for strength and speed in combat, they're equals. So, I mean, technically she does have more powers than that, yes. But it's also, I don't know what the limits are of Solari's powers, because in Great War Separation, all he had was strength. Now he's got flight. Why can't he develop more? I mean, it's... Anyway. The letter here talks about how, he got the chance, and he was excited, very excited, to have been given a chance to be part of this rapidly expanding universe of stories. And that this specific one Little Push, his contribution, because two things he found particularly interesting. How humans would react to and try to grapple with a world where superpowered beings now exist. What it would do to our fundamental understanding of the world and everything around us, and how we might try to fight back against that. And when it comes to superheroes, there's few more powerful than Yaira, who's basically the Rippaverse answer to Superman. I wouldn't describe it. Solari is more so that, because Yaira doesn't have... an aspect of Superman is a clear moral code. Yaira doesn't quite seem to have that. She's more selfish in her motivations, in that she doesn't protect people because it's the right thing to do. Like Superman would. She protects those she cares about and wants to protect. So it's not exactly... I mean, power level-wise, maybe, but it's more Solari seems that. But it's also this, how humans would react to and try to grapple with a world where superpowered beings now exist. Okay, I that annoys me for a couple reasons. One is, I've actually had, written that book. So, I mean, for me, obviously, you can write this... I have written a book with that is part of it. Like, I finished writing Failure, and when thinking about the sequel, Failure is a very personal story, technically, in that it really is just following Sam. That's it. It's about him. He's the only one with superpowers at that time. And, while working on editing that and thinking about the future, I was also thinking then, okay, what's going to happen in the next book? And one thing I knew for a fact, it would have to be, what would have to include, what is the world like now that that he exists with his abilities, but also I decided that he's an outlier. That his abilities were basically active since he was born. They were weak, which is important because they're very powerful, but they developed over time make him far more powerful than, obviously, at birth. And technically, everyone else, that their abilities do develop more over time. But it still is, once his abilities were shown in failure, other people's abilities started manifesting. So now it's not just him that the world would know about, but it's also there's other people who their abilities are manifesting, and how are they handling that? And there's a lot in that book that's exactly what it's about. So it's like, it's kind of like that thing back with Zaylin, with the whole, hey, we got these these spacefaring life forms that they just feed on gas and dust. It's like, I've already written that as well. So you kind of picked the wrong. Well, unfortunately, you got me criticizing this. So it's like, I've already given this thought, so I can be more critical of it than others. But so it's that way. It's like, yeah, I already know how some of this would go because I've thought out some of it. But it is also true. That's in the case of failure, where one dude, very powerful, single event mainly that people would know, and a lot of it is no one would believe. Even people who saw it might not believe what they saw. Such that even before failure ends, because it's the climax scene, and then there's a couple days before the story actually ends. Even within that, there were people being like, nah, it was fake. Shown many gifts, full on, there are people that just deny it's true. And even early on in the story, that there's a character who points to a building, because part of it was a building being partially destroyed and then put back together. Buy the book Failure, read it, you'll understand. But one character, he points to it to make the point that even though there are people who say it didn't happen, that reject that it could have happened, all that, the floors on that building that disappeared only have servers on them now. No humans work there. Because even though people say, I don't believe it happened, they're still willing to accept that, you know what, I don't want to be there because this is weird. So they can't reject it. They're not rejecting it. They're denying it, but they're not rejecting it. So anyway, coming back to this, is also another fundamental issue with this idea, grapple with a world where superpowered beings now exist. Great War of Separation is so many books back, and I do understand that, yeah, this is not in published order, but Saints and Sinners was announced 1 week. The Omnibus was announced like a couple weeks after, because I remember thinking, Saints and Sinners, that might be interesting to get, but then Omnibus, and it would include, it's like, yeah, I'll just buy that instead, because it's like, I mentioned before with background noise, as very much in background noise, he's in the stuff I listen to for background noise while working, Mauler as well. Critical Drinker I'm aware of. So it's like, all right. It's like, he's not really in the, Critical Drinker's not really in background noise, but I am aware of it, and of him, and I do look at some of his videos occasionally. Depends on if I care. But it's just, I was thinking about that, so I know that timeline there. So Great War of Separation had to have been earlier, because I don't recall any other books being announced after Saints and Sinners, well, between Saints and Sinners and the Omnibus. Which means Great War of Separation, which is decades prior to the bulk of the events for this story, already happened. And in that, it's already established the Accepts have existed for a while. They're in psychiatric hospitals or in prison, or they're just hiding in plain sight. So, I'm sorry, Will, but they've existed for a while. People have, it's like a lot of the characters here, you have only known a world where they existed. They might not have met them. There might be more now than there were, but they did exist. There's also the fact that Yaira is centuries old. Neptune was there before her, but we don't know much about his history. But Yaira is definitely around, maybe doing stuff with her powers, maybe not. Hard to say. But also, Isam 3. You've got Avery, Isam, and his mother. Both have powers. And what is the description given for them? Because they are different. They're not Accepts, they're Peakers. There's one a generation, it's said, going back 2,000 years. And there's rumors about, like, Bloodruth has heard of Peakers, right? So you had to have had prior people in that line use their abilities, be given that name or given themselves that name that then spread, so the Bloodroots would be familiar with the rumor. I don't remember if other people mentioned it as well, but it's just, I'm sorry, but you guaranteed decades of people living in a world with superpowers, possibly centuries. Now, if you wanted to tell that story of decades prior, centuries prior, that would be interesting. Well, I shouldn't put it that way. That is a story that can be told, and it can be interesting. Like, that is a very worthy story to tell. Part of the reason I told it. Part of the other reason, well, another reason why I told it was just, it was the next logical step. And I'll even mention, because initially I was only thinking three stories, but then I had an idea that, like, this one would be referencing, and it's like, as I thought about it, no, it's going to be 4 stories for Sam, the failure stories. I don't really mind sharing what the next one is, because it's like, first, it's a story just about him, then it's a story about how the world is changing because of him and others. Third one is a result of that change. And part of it is basically people starting to be treated like gods, specifically those who are immortal. Okay, and this leads to conflict. And it's just the whole, it's like, I do think this stuff, and that is a very interesting story, because that's a very reasonable thing to happen, that some of these people would start actually trying to claim to be gods. That's not what's going on here, though. In fact, there's the whole let's try to kill a god, Yaira, but it's just, I get the idea here. You can't, but that story about how humans would react to and try to grapple with a world where superpower beings now exist, and currently, as in they did not. You have to go back in time. This can't be the setting for it. And then we got, the second point, the nature of causality and fate, and how the most dramatic events can so often hinge on one tiny decision at a crucial moment. That actually does align with what we get here. Anyhow, so it is set in Flores Park, and it starts where we see this character with, a black hat that has like a skull kind of ornament on the front. It's like a fedora, so you've got the band there, and it's right on the front. And is in just a coat with the collar turned up, and it reaches all the way to the ground. His hands are in his pocket, and I guess technically with that, there's one panel here where it does look like he does in fact have legs, but some of it he does look like as he's walking as though he might not. Like, it is just a floating coat. Okay, and he also is wearing gloves, so he basically a mysterious dark figure is exactly how you would describe him. And it's just, talking about stuff here, and it's kind of suggesting as though he might be the one, he might be Cain. He might be the assassin. And, the thing is, it might surprise you to know that I take no pleasure in what I do. Repeat any task enough times, and you just stop thinking about it. Depending. It becomes as natural as breathing. And in the end, it's better that way. Better not to get involved. Better not to unbalance the scales. But sometimes, just sometimes, I make an exception. So this is stuff that it's not unreasonable. You read that and you're thinking, okay, maybe this is Cain. And then in the next panel, we see Cain has arrived at Club Merc because Darren wants to hire him. And it's like, okay, maybe you take off the hat, you open up the coat, this is what Cain looks like. It's not unreasonable. Although the fact that they do change the color of the text boxes, that does kind of give it away. But in any case, now we got Darren who's looking to hire him specifically to kill Yaira. And Cain even asks the question, why do you want her dead? Thought you asked no questions on jobs like this. There are no there are no jobs like this. I want to know what I'm getting into. And Darren explains, and let me be clear on something. True, it's been a while since I read the ISM stories. This Darren feels very consistent with that Darren. Okay, I do want to acknowledge that. So either the critical drinker understands Darren very well, or somebody helped with editing or rewriting him to make sure he's consistent, because he is very, very consistent here, in that he's still an idiot. Because it's like, why? Because he sees himself as a self-made man, in part because, nobody gave it to me, and I own all this stuff. I own the city. Which is not true, but anyway, nobody gave it to me. I had to take it for myself. Want to know how I did that? Respect. You can't get nothing in this life without respect, and people only respect you if they fear you. This is what I mean by he's an idiot. He doesn't understand what respect is. He's just defining it to be fear, so he can therefore justify any evil action he makes, because if it produces terror, then he sees it as, well, it's justified because now you're going to respect me. It's like, that's not how that works. I'm saying, going back to the end of Ice on 3, Avery saving Santuan's life shows a respect for him. Santuan has no reason to fear him for that. No one has any reason to fear Avery for deciding to do that. But it is still a sign of respect. So, yeah. But then it continues, and again shows Damon's an idiot, but consistent idiot with what we'd seen previously. They fear her because they know what she's capable of. Technically not true. We don't know the full capabilities of her. Anyway, imagine what they'll feel when I kill her. It's like, no. You're hiring somebody to kill her. You're not killing her. You ain't doing shit here. What? That's not saying that anything about, oh man, I should respect him because he hired someone to kill her. It's like that's saying, I should respect you because you have money. No. Who killed her? Who actually pulled the trigger? That guy did. Okay, I respect him. Why would I care about you? He's actually achieved something. The feat is his. I mean, Darren's an idiot. Yeah. There's also another issue because I mentioned, I brought up Solari earlier. Like, if Darren actually Yaira's also a safe target, in that her elimination, who's that going to bother? No, I mean, legitimately, who is that going to bother? Because she's not affiliated with anyone. She's completely a rogue agent. Solari, however, is a super cop. He's actually somebody that Darren may have to contend with. Yaira is, if they cross paths, maybe something happens, maybe nothing happens. Solari would want to arrest Darren, would want to investigate and arrest him. So actually eliminating Solari would be far more impactful for Darren. But he goes after Solari. For one thing, if he misses, Solari's not going to come and kill him. Well, maybe not kill him, but you've now guaranteed an enemy there. But even if you succeed, you guarantee an enemy of Alpha Core, which at this point would at least consist of Ingrid and Braxwell. Not entirely sure about Ingrid's powers, but Braxwell at least has flight and super strength, like Solari. Maybe not on his same level, but there. And then also the police force itself. So it's like you're actually going after the safe target as well. So it's like it's really stupid. But again, well, it is stupid to go after, to target the Yaira in general, because it's not actually going to help you, but it's also, as I said, the safe target. Which is kind of consistent with Dan, because he's both an idiot, but also he's a coward. Like how he's just defining what respect is so he can claim, yes, people respect me. It's like, no, you're just a tyrant who, if we don't give you what you want, you will kill us, and I'd value my life more than whatever it is you want. It's like, but anyway, it's in Darren's office. He's got two guys, and he had prearranged with them that when he snaps his fingers, they should pull their guns to try to kill this guy, kill Kane, who then apparently has super speed or something akin to that, and is able to dodge around and ends up killing both of them. And pointing the gun then at Darren, and he decides not to kill Darren. I'm not entirely sure why. Because, I mean, it's just that element of, yeah, he's unarmed, but he's still the one that ordered to kill you. So it's, you're already an assassin, so I don't see what's wrong with that. Anyway, But it was, just, I wanted to confirm you were an accept. It's like, and even Kane is like, the man was willing to sacrifice 2 of his own men just to test the theory. What kind of monster was I dealing with? And it's like, see, this is also part of it with Darren that I guess Kane just hasn't realized yet. He didn't sacrifice 2 of his own men because he doesn't consider them his own. At least not his own men. His own property, which he has no problem with destroying. But not that they are men, not that they are people. Because again, Darren is a piece of shit. And it is as I said, pretty damn consistent with what was in ISOM, so like, good job. We then have Kane in his Batcave kind of thing, studying, because you have to study who it is you're gonna go after. I just realized that actually is. Some of the photos are of her in what she was wearing when we first encountered her in ISOM 1. Hang on. I just want to check. Well, technically it's a little bit different. Because she was wearing both a white top, but also a black, equally sized black shirt underneath, it seems, or partial shirt. Not sure if it would actually been a sports bra or not, but something underneath as well. Whereas in this, you can, in the different shots, different pictures of her, that is absent. So technically that is an error. But then it's also, there are 2 pictures here where she's in the armor, which means that this is taking place after the events of Yaiba 1, and actually after some of the events of Yaiba 2, because she was only revealed in her armor towards the end of that. She was believed dead and no one had seen her with that armor until then, so. I'm just trying to think so potentially then this is also after the events of ISOM 3. Anyway, but we get a line here that I don't like. If she can, because he has to figure out what her weakness is. If she can manipulate temperature to turn ice into a weapon, then logically the opposite extreme must be her weakness. What? No? That she can make things really cold and then use ice. That's just what her ability is. Or one of them. It does not follow at all that that's a weakness. That's just she can cool things. So what? A refrigerator cools things as well. That doesn't mean heat. That doesn't mean it's weak to heat. Because if you take a sledgehammer to it, it's still gonna fall apart. I mean, it's like, but by this logic, going back to Solari, he has super strength. Does that mean we need a wet paper bag to defeat him? Because that would be really weak. I mean, it's like, what do you? This doesn't follow. It doesn't. So yeah, and it's just my issue here is not the. I can understand the whole. Okay, so using ice, using cold against her probably would have no effect. But heat seems reasonable. It's like that would be fine. It's like it's a guess though. It's not then logically the opposite extreme must be a weak. No, it's not. I mean, I don't. I don't see how that makes sense at all. And hang on, I'm almost just because back in Great War Separation, we also had the one character that could freeze things down to was saying absolute zero, was saying Bose-Einstein constant. They were using those terms incorrectly, but still, it's like could really, really freeze things. And it's like more like that. It's like, okay, now maybe you could say the weakness there would be heat, except was that woman was consistently shown as being able to freeze anything she comes in contact with, so extreme heat she might be able to overcome. What actually beat her? Water. And threw in water because it would freeze around her, trapping her. Yeah, I mean that makes sense. But then technically, as I think about it now, I wouldn't put this into the review. Just why is she not freezing the air around her such that it's actually turning into a liquid or even a solid? Technically, that is a fair question. But it could just be she can turn it on and off. But then why wouldn't she turn it off in the water so she doesn't get frozen? I think it's more so one of those things where it's like artificial gravity in space. In science fiction, where it's like, it's just something we need. It's like, yeah, she just doesn't freeze the air because that would cause problems. It's like, yeah, kind of have to be okay with that. But it's just, it doesn't follow that heat is what would kill her based on his knowledge of her. Now it is true that in Yaira 1, because one of the three that came for her, I don't remember which one it was, Yanessa or the guy, did make mention about how Earth is unbearably hot. Like, they don't know how anyone could live there. It's so hot. And it's like, okay, so that is establishing that they don't like the heat. So it might then be a weakness. But just the idea that, can manipulate temperature to turn ice into a weapon, that's it doesn't follow from that. There is no knowledge here, presented here, that would explain it. They would defend heat as a weakness. However, it is, if he had knowledge, if it were presented here, that he knew about the ending of Yaira 1, where these other beings that seemed to be similar to her were killed at a volcano in lava, okay, now heat makes sense, but it's, yeah. He apparently does not work alone, or at least has, gone to visit a gun shop, where he purchases a rifle, but also armor-piercing incendiary rounds. I'm not sure if those are a thing, by the way. I'm just thinking. I guess they could be, because there's different kinds of armor-piercing. Because there's armor-piercing where it literally has, like, a bullet inside of a bullet, where the outer bullet also has, like, an explosive charge, so when it hit... But that's more so for, like, naval encounters, but it's, like, so it'll hit and, it'll explode, damaging the outer armor, so then the inner round can go in deeper. That's for, like, naval rounds. For more handguns and also rifles, there's, if it's off-center a little bit, it can get through the weave of stuff, and there's also just using very, very hard materials for the bullet, such that they won't deform, and are going to survive the shredding capability of a ceramic plate. And I guess you could, with those, stick phosphorus on them for incendiary round? Guess maybe. Yeah. But I think you'd also end up losing some of the armor piercing. I am overthinking this, yes. But it's also one thing, because like, what is the gun that he has that he's purchased here? It looks like it's a Barrett 50 BMG, which is a uses a 50 BMG round, which that's a large round. Okay, I'm saying that thing will kill a lot of things. But it's also semi-automatic, so a Barrett is a scary rifle as well. But it doesn't make sense for this. Because it's like, he gets into position because he's noticed that basically at lunchtime, well, he figured out that Sally Rodell is Yaira. Okay, cool. At least there's somebody who can figure out that, same person. But that, she always goes out to get coffee. And it's like, okay, but you're intending one shot. Like, if you need more than one shot to kill her, you're lost. I mean, it's like, she's too powerful. Why would you use the Barrett? The semi-automatic capability is unnecessary here. It would make more sense to use something else, especially because something else might be simpler, and so it may also be more reliable. Like, because if you don't have the semi-automatic mechanism in there, I mean, true, you probably don't need to worry about a jam if you're firing just one, but it's still, there are other options, including at 50 BMG, but also there are more powerful rounds as well that you could go to that might have a better shot against the Yaira. I'm just, on the one hand, I grant the Barrett is a very recognizable, powerful gun. But it's also one of those, really all you need is a big gun. And people will recognize that, and going with something else, I don't know, I get, not to the same degree, because this is at least valid, but it kind of reminds me, as I'm talking about it now, and, well, rambling now, I should say, it's kind of like back in the Great War of Separation, where they showed a B-2 being used to drop, to have people parachute out of. It's like, no, that aircraft in no way is meant for that. You would never use it that way. You'd never be able to use it you couldn't use it that way. It's like that is a completely wrong tool for the job. But it's like, oh, but it's recognizable. It's like, yeah, but it's the wrong tool for the job. It is the right tool for the job. It's just there's better tools is kind of my point there. So anyway, we now at this point will learn that Kane is not this mysterious figure in black, because he is actually at Projexis, at the building, and is seeing the stuff. And we also do get Yaira. It's kind of weird that I'd been having that feeling all morning. There's no proper word in human, or even in my language to describe it, but I know it when I feel it. It's like anticipation. I mean, the feeling of anticipation of something coming that I can't quite see. It's like intuition, gut feeling. I mean, it's like we actually do have terms for that. I don't know why we're making Yaira not know, but anyhow. But Altona comes up and is like, wanting to like talk with her about some stuff, and say, I was just going to get some coffee. Now you're talking my language. Mind if I tag along? And the mysterious figure in black is following them, and we get more of the more of him talking. Keep my distance as they leave, not wanting to risk discovery. Different worlds, different sense of perception, I suppose. I make a mental note to give that some thought later. For now, though, there's work to be done. It's almost time. So, I don't know, maybe she's actually being triggered. Her senses being triggered by his presence. Don't know. But then we have, he is aiming at, Kane is aiming at Yaira. It does show him firing, and then this guy is the mysterious guy is like, okay, I can see possible futures. I saw it now, the divergence of paths, the threat of possibility hanging in the air just for a moment. Because Yaira was actually going to be able to dodge the hit, but it would have hit Altona, likely killing her, and he even acknowledges, yeah, this would set off a can of worms that's not a good thing. But if he provides one little push to a guy, well, actually a kid, on a skateboard nearby, so he would bump into Altona and also Yaira, so then the shot misses entirely, that would be better. Of course, there's technically the issue that the Barrett is, well, any 50 BMG is, okay, actually I think there are some subsonics, but still it's a supersonic round. You're not, and this is like from only across the street, okay? I mean, this thing would be good for hundreds of yards, and this is like, maybe 20, 30. No. There's no way you have any kind of reaction time here. So that this could I mean, I know I'm getting technical here, but it is just, some aspects of this are a bit cliche. Like, even this mysterious figure who is just like, oh, I can see how time is going to go, and, the different possibilities. I'm going to influence things to be this way or that way. Normally I try to maintain balance, but, it sometimes makes it... That's kind of cliche. Not that I can necessarily name the stories, but I got so many movies and television here. I'm pretty sure at least one of them has such a character. I'm certain I've seen it in stuff I don't own. Probably have read it. I mean, it's like, it's not that really... I mean... Sorry, it just occurred to me, in a way, the Omega-13 in Galaxy Quest is this. Where you see that possibility and then you go back to change it or somehow alter it. It's like, this is a established kind of idea. But there's a problem that you need the impetus for the timeline to change to happen at the time before the event, And it's like, well, no, the event has already started and would be less than a fraction of a second, a very, very small fraction of a second, for there to be any change here. That's not enough for this guy to run into the two women, so that then it's a miss. It's no, especially not with it would be a supersonic round that would have almost no deviation that far away. I mean, it's yeah. But anyway, round misses. Blows up a car nearby. Yeah, I was like, "Are you okay? Are you hurt? No, good, okay. Don't worry, Altona. I'll be back after I deal with this." Which is, she goes over to the building that Kane was in, is able to reach him. And next thing we see, he is thrown out of the building and just crashes down on a car, killing him. Yes. And then this is Kane thinking, time stretched out in the worst way possible as I waited for the ground to come up to meet me. I was left with quite some time to think about how and why my mission had failed, how badly I had underestimated my prey. But the one question I never could answer was, why? And then we go back to the mysterious man. Sure, I'd bent the rules a little, and even I can't see where all this might end. I'd see both of them again someday, that much was certain, but not today. The thought cheered me a little as I headed for my next assignment. No rest for the wicked, as the saying goes. You think you know me, you don't, and it's just like... I mean, he knew Yaira wasn't going to be killed. Come on. But it's just... One thing that I do kind of like here, and again, this is completely biased, is this idea that this guy Kane, who's been shown to have like super speed, and he's experiencing it as time stretched out in the worst way possible, as I waited for the ground to come up to meet me. One of the characters in the Children Money Gifts, so that's the sequel to Failure that I was referring to earlier, manipulates time. It's not that he moves fast, it's that he can move through time more quickly. And so there's that, but there's also, and this is something, I use it in Children Money Gifts, but it's technically not explained there. It's explained in Failure. That when basically fight or flight does trigger your abilities and can amplify them, such that this guy, the way he's actually killed is he's basically buried in a building. Imagine just being swallowed up in concrete kind of thing, right? And he can't escape. Well, his ability is actually slowing down time because it's trying to give him more time to survive, but it's inescapable for him. So it actually stretches his death out for him an incredibly long period of time, which is torturous. And I do appreciate that, in theory, that's what's happening to this guy as well. His ability is trying to stretch out time to give him a chance, but he has no ability to correct this. He is going to die, and he's just stuck in that. So I do appreciate that, because it is that idea of your abilities not activating to try to save you, and so being beyond your control, possibly making the situation worse. I'm good with that. As I said, I'm biased, because I do have that in the story. But yeah, and that's where it ends. He's just, going off for whatever his next assignment is. And I get how his character could be interesting, but I don't know. I mean, in the end, I gave this... Hey, I'm just thinking, do I want to adjust that as I'm thinking about it now? I gave it a 1, so a positively flavored fail to recommend. Because, I mean, Kane is not all that interesting. Because he's also not that smart. I'm just like, that logically, heat is a weakness. It's like, no, it's not. You're not actually using the right gun, or at least, you're not using the most appropriate gun, the best gun. I mean, it's like, if you figure, it's like, she's really tough, why don't you go with something like a 700 Nitro? It's like an actual legitimate Safari gun. I mean, true, it might be harder to find incendiary rounds in that. But, I mean, 50 BMG, as powerful as it is, there are more powerful guns. Okay? There are. But it's just, yeah, And there's also that element of, if this guy is truly that great an assassin, why is he having to go to somebody else to buy the gun? Why doesn't he have it? Why is he going with the gun instead of going with something else? Why isn't he being... Okay, well, that could be because the book is too short. But, only 15 pages. But still, it's like, he's not that impressive. He really isn't. It's yeah. I guess another way to put it is, this guy ain't being John Wick. Okay, I mean, it's like, John Wick's actually impressive. This guy's not that. I mean, true, he does have super speed that John Wick doesn't, but Wick demonstrates not only a discipline and a will, but there is intelligence for him as well. And this guy is... I'm not convinced of that. The mysterious guy, he's interesting, but it's also a... What more are we going to see from him? Like, is he going to be present in the future and influencing things? Because there's also that element of how he's describing himself even is he's not going to be involved in things. That he normally doesn't impact things. It's like he needs an assignment to do that. This he did just because he somehow knew it was coming and knew that, hey, this should be disrupted because it would be bad if it isn't. It's like, okay, but is he largely then just a watcher kind of person? So how interesting can he be? Unless he chooses to start getting involved. Okay, well, will there be consequences? I mean, yeah. I know it's definitely in failure to recommend. I think I have to keep it at positively flavored. I would only drop it down, if I were to change it, it would only go to just a straight failure to recommend. But it is still, I appreciate Darren being accurately, at least he seems very consistent, very accurate to how he was in ISON. So there's that. That is working in his favor. Some of what is being shown here is still interesting. It's just I'm not feeling the connection. I really don't. And also the technical stuff, like it doesn't follow that she's weak to heat because of that. And also that's not really necessarily the right gun to use. I mean, and even if you stick to 50 BMG, it's still, because it's like, maybe that's where you can find the incendiary ammo. Well, the incendiary armor piercing, which it's still, I'm not sure if that would be a real thing, but regardless, you might be able to find that. It's more common ammo than, say, 700 nitro. But, still is, the Barrett isn't really a sniper rifle. You can snipe with it, but there would be myriad others. Yeah, so it's just, yeah. And, okay, one thing that I know it's not like anyone watches these videos and probably wouldn't have a comment, but it's just one gun tuber that is amusing to watch and also very interesting. Don't get me wrong, it's entertaining and you can learn some stuff, including about guns, like seeing 700 nitro, is Kentucky Ballistics. And he once had a horrible accident. Fortunately, he survived because he put a thumb in it. Where a different, still 50 BMG rifle exploded. And it's like, but different rifle, and that more so a sniper rifle than a Barrett, I would think. But it's just, it kind of makes me wonder, because I do watch that content, because it's interesting and it's very entertaining. In Kentucky Ballistics, the guy's name is Scott. It is clear he is passionate about this, and he loves that he's able to share this with people. I mean, it's that legitimately is part of what makes it so enjoyable. But it's just, I do wonder, does that mean that my knowledge of firearms is sufficiently greater than the average person that's like, yeah, that's a Barrett, but that's not why would you use that? Why don't you use this? I don't know, but it's just, yeah, no, it's a 1. It's positively flavored. It still has to be, because there is enough stuff there that done well. It just, I guess right now I'm just trying to think, even though this is getting to be a much longer video than it probably needs to be, what would it take to get it into a recommendation? What would that take? It's like going more critical and creative with that. What do I think you would need? More thought behind how he'd go at Yaira. Because I'm just like, just fire gun, that doesn't really follow. That's, well, I'm just thinking, if it was something like, okay, I'm going to go with the incendiary round, but it's not to hit her, it's to, like, when she's in a car or near a car, hit that and maybe try to rig up that car so when it explodes, it's a fireball and we'll kill her that way. That would be more reasonable. Like, because it's like, okay, now it makes a bit more sense. It would be harder to avoid that happening, although it could be that, it's like the one little push was a push to him, so he ended up missing the shot. Which in that case, then, it would actually make the Barrett appropriate because he'd be able to immediately fire again because semi-automatic. But then, yeah, you'd need to. Yaira would be warned though, so if he were to make another shot, she'd be able to move. Things like that. So it's like, yeah, make Kane more lethal, and because it's also that way you can make it seem more that Kane is inevitable. That there's no way that he is so lethal, he's so effective as an assassin that even Yaira is going to be killed. Like, even she won't be able to survive this. But then this guy, he sees it. He knows what would happen if he doesn't interfere, and he sees the way to interfere, the small thing, the very easy small thing that'll do that. And, give me one moment, I'll be right back. Favorite Asimov book, The End of Eternity. And Eternity is it's a place outside of time, hence why it's called Eternity. But they have people that travel through time to make changes in human history to try to prevent certain things, kind of like this mysterious figure. And in the beginning, and the story is not exactly linear because where it starts is technically something that happens in the middle, but we start there and then it goes back and catches up. So actually, like Chasing Ghosts earlier. Very much like that. But when the first mission that the guy has, I'm trying to remember what his name is. It's Harlan. Okay, I always forget. Is so there was going to be this mass addiction that would sweep through humanity and be such a problem. And initially, the guy who is trying to figure out how to prevent this figured, okay, well, if we blow up this ship and kill all these dozens of people, that'll stop, and that's the most efficient way to do it. Harlan, however, it's not his job to come up with these things, but he does review the plan, and he will come up with new options. He's starting through all this, and what did he come up with? Because he's like this mysterious figure. All he does is he reaches through time, grabs a container on a shelf, and moves it. That's it. That's it. So the implication being that what had happened, and I think it may have also said it, but that at one point it was on a ship, and like a spaceship, as though it's like a guy just, went back in that room, bumped that container, whatever chemicals in it splashed on him, then he like started having a trip and was like, whoa, wow, man, I'm gonna tell people about this. But by just moving that, then he prevents the accident. So that person is never exposed to it, and so no one ever realizes that there's this chemical impact, the psychological impact. That's kind of what this mysterious figure is like. We're just going to that minimal thing. And it's like, that would actually be much more interesting if Kane were more impressive, if he was more plotting this all out, considering all the different things. But then it's like, no, you missed this one thing that's just small enough for you to miss, but also significant enough to have this massive impact. Here, how about this? Because if we go with he's not shooting at Yaira with the round. He will shoot at a car that will explode in a fireball, and that's what kills her. If we go with that, let's imagine that's it. Okay? What could be the one thing that would throw that off? The one thing. What if the car suddenly had a blowout? Because that would shift the car a little bit. And what if that would just enough, so the bullet misses the target and doesn't ignite? That would also technically be realistic because you wouldn't want to use a 50 BMG. That is too loud. Like, going to be identified, and also the damage to the car, even with it exploding, they're going to find, oh, that's a big hole. I mean, wouldn't necessarily be, no, probably exit wound might be like that big. Entry wound would probably still be about that big. Is my guess, but it's like that would be recognizable. You go with something smaller, but still but still fast, still powerful, so it'll punch through the car. And there are definitely rounds that can do that. Much smaller rounds, subsonic, so it can be suppressed, so that way people are less likely to hear it, also less likely to see it because you don't have the flash. So you go with that, but it might be he has to aim in just the right spot, and maybe also it's not the bullets don't travel in straight lines. Yeah, the gravity, but it is also that there's always some error, there's always some inaccuracy there. Do something like that. So you just tire blows out at just the right time, so the car drops, and just the bullet itself is not perfectly accurate, misses. You could go with that, and still have it be a Yaira realizes something happens, because if the car doesn't explode, you still got the bullet hit somewhere. She might be able to pick up on that, still find the guy who, if he's using a single shot rifle, then he can't just fire immediately. He has to run to get out of there, because if he's found, he's done for. She's fast enough, is able to catch. It's like that way it's something smaller. So you can heighten Kane, and therefore for this mysterious stranger, this mysterious guy, to best Kane is actually showing him as him being even better. Kane's just going to put fire bullet in big gun, fire at cold lady, win. I mean, it's like, so yeah, it's like you can do something that would make it better, because it also would also suggest then that the mysterious guy is able to have just an influence on the world around him. That it's like he can just cause, at a distance, a car's tire to blow out. Like that, you don't really expect that. It's like, how would he do that at range versus just a push? It's like potentially he just physically pushed the kid into the women to cause the shot to miss. Which also, by the way, the shot missing like that, it's like, dude, he shouldn't have taken the shot then. He should have been paying attention and made sure that. I mean, it's just, yeah. So there are different issues there that, even within the 15 pages, I think you could still tighten up what he's doing to make it more likely to succeed. And then you have that one thing, that one weakness, that you're moving the can, like Harlan does in End of Eternity. That one thing, one small thing that's just enough to have the impact you're looking for. Kane is now better because it's a better plan. The mysterious figure is better because he still found that one thing, that small thing that no one would account for, and it just seems to be, wow, you were so lucky that this happened. So yeah, it's like that I think would be better, because because he can then potentially, the figure can be stay very mysterious. It's like next time you see him, it might be something else that's really small, just a small minor thing that, oh, was that him or was it something else? Was it just random? You don't know. So you can start having fun then with like occasionally having a dark figure in the background of a panel in other things. It's like, and I would do that actually if I were at the Rippaverse, and say with this guy I would just place him randomly in some stories, so that people would then wonder, oh, is this guy influencing things? Like, or is it just that there's a dude walking around in a black hat and coat? It's like I would do that just to mess with people, and even have it where like nothing happens. So it's like, did he do anything? It's like, well, no, maybe that's not him. I'm saying I would do that, but anyway, yeah. So yeah, there are ways it can be better, and I don't feel sufficient connection with any of them, but I do appreciate Darren is. I like how Darren is written. Yeah. So next up will be The Horseman, Welcome to Flora's Park, which I do want to quickly look add one thing with this. Because I've gotten kind of used to the Saints and Sinners being so short. Okay. This actually, I mean, that's a decent length, but I think that there have been others thus far that are longer. But then after that, we get the Horseman #1. Okay. Okay, no. I mean, I'm not sure how long they are because we don't get page numbers, but it's like, no, okay. Horseman #1 looks about the same length. Okay. And I expect Horseman #1 being, #1 like that to be comparable in length to like the Yairas and the Isums and such. So, okay. But yeah, so that'll be interesting. So I know I've managed to hit an hour on this with a 15-page long story. Like I said, I can ramble. But it's the next one will probably also be long because in theory there's going to be more there to talk about. Yeah, this not only was the stuff for me to trigger me to ramble, but also some stuff where it's like, I mean, you make me think of End of Eternity that I would love to talk about. You make me think about my own stories, which I'd love to talk about. I mean, yeah. Set it up for me to ramble. What do you expect to happen? All right. See you next time.